Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andres Groves, and joined by one of my co-hosts, Matthew Merrett. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a bit better now that I've had a good night's sleep, because after that game yesterday I was a bit frustrated. I know it goes back to draft position, be winning, be beating Tom Brady, but when the Jets were driving that final drive that ultimately stalled out on the 4th and 2 play, which we'll get into,
The infamous 4th and 2.
Infamous. Yeah. I really wanted the Jets to bring it home. I can't lie, and I thought they were so close to doing it. It was a bit upsetting. As soon as they failed, I kind of made peace with the fact that Tom Brady was going to do what Tom Brady does and kind of take them down the field pretty effortlessly. But the bigger picture, and it's kind of what we spoke about before this kind of last run of games when they're kind of approaching them, the Jacksonville, Tampa Bay and Bills, is that the Jets had an opportunity to kind of set the narrative straight on what they wanted it to be going into the off-season and next season, and they continued to do that. I mean, Zach Wilson played really, really well yesterday. One of his best games, I think, in terms of his efficiency and his delivery. He didn't quite have the splash plays that we saw against perhaps the Tennessee, but he was just dealing, and the velocity and the confidence and the timing. It was like BYU Zach Wilson was back, and he played really, really well with sub-optimal talent around him. And I think that's the big takeaway. The defense played hard. Again, they're just talent poor though, and that's costing us in those critical moments. I think Robert Saleh's kind of getting better and better at coaching, taking away the miscommunication, as they called it, on 4th and 2, but he's coaching more aggressively, he's coaching smarter, and I think he's kind of got his feet under the table now in that regard. Yeah. And overall, I think the picture is looking positive, and you just hope that the Jets can kind of put one more performance like this out there next week against Buffalo. Although Buffalo will be playing hard, obviously, with the division title on the line, but you want to see the Jets kind of continue this momentum, so there's something positive to take forward into the off-season, and then we can kind of get excited about 2022 and where it's going to take us.
Yeah, it was definitely disappointing to not pull off that win. It would have been nice to, in the last, it was likely to be the last time we play Tom Brady, to not pick up the win. But there was a lot of positives to be taken from some of the young players playing out there who were still there. We're without so many players, but for who wasn't out there, I think they showed themselves up to be really good. And we just kind of lacked that quality at the end, and that was decisive, especially on that last play. The Bucs got the winning touchdown from. So yeah, but honestly, I was really impressed with Zach Wilson. I thought I was quietly confident that he would put up a good score. I think the defense played better than I thought. With my prediction last week, I obviously thought they were going to go near 40, and they did better than that. But I thought that Zach would have a decent game and put up some points, and he continued that with. Honestly, you list all the what he's missing. It's obviously everyone's mentioned it. Obviously, the receivers, the tight ends, the running backs, the line. There's just it's hits everywhere that he's missing, and yet he's elevating the players that he's got around him, and it's really, impressive, and it's really promising when you think, okay, well, if you replace all those players with the players that we're missing, we could actually be quite a potent offense against anybody next season if we put it together. So, really, really promising, really, really promising. So, the defense, it is what it is, really. I think they played really hard, and I think some players really gave a good account of themselves. The corners, specifically, I think, had a really hard matchup against some really elite talent against Gronk and the wide receivers. But I think they did okay. It was never going to be perfect. You could see sometimes the talent of the connection between Tom Brady and his weapons was just too good. But I think overall they did a good job, and they kind of made Brady hold the ball a bit, which helped the pass rush get there a little bit in the first half. Obviously, that dried up in the second half. But yeah, I think overall, the effort, you can tell, and I'm definitely right with what you're saying in terms of Robert Saleh. The way he's coaching, he's getting much more comfortable. I think everyone's getting more comfortable in their roles, and I think it bodes really well for year 2.
No, totally. I mean, yeah, the talent is not where we want to be. I think if you put that offense out there in a week 4 preseason game, with exception of the quarterback, you would not be surprised to see those names kind of on the bubble. And I think it's testament to Zach how well he played. I think Mike LaFleur kind of continues to dial it up from the booth. That first touchdown that Braxton scored was really nice, and they're getting deep in there. And that's what you have to do when you're up against a team who's so superior to yourselves. I mean, you can kind of compare the safety position where Antoine Winfield makes that diving last-second tackle on Berrios to kind of halt us, and then unfortunately Elijah Riley. And I don't think we can get on Elijah Riley too much for it because he's up against the best quarterback. He kind of moves him with his eyes, and it's just a little bit late to the winning touchdown. So it's frustrating. But these are all learning opportunities for the Jets, and these are all kind of things they'll be able to take forward, build on, and that's kind of what we kind of knew the second half of the season was always going to be about. Was what can you get in terms of positive momentum, and what can you get in terms of finding the pieces and finding the style and the lessons and the developments that you need to kind of set you up for next season. And I think they're doing all of that. It's a shame that these wins are kind of slipping away from us, because we felt like the games against Philadelphia, Miami, Tampa Bay, these are all games which we had a chance going into the fourth quarter, and we just haven't been able to get it done. And it's a learning process. It's a young roster, and these excuses aren't going to be around forever. But right now, this is where we are, and this is kind of the reality of the situation and what you've got to kind of appreciate, take on board, and see where we get to. When we had 4 top 40 NFL talents, spend the cap space, build out this roster, get that kind of starting offense back on the field. And every team has injuries, but it does feel like the Jets once again have slightly been disproportionately affected.
Yeah.
And it's a worry, but that's kind of where we are. And I think it's important just to keep stock of it. In the bigger picture, hopefully we look back and say, yeah, it was the right thing. But it was frustrating that the game boiled down to this one play call.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate because, like I said, I think Zach had the best, for me, one of the best rookie games at QB. I think only Matt Jones can probably better his performance in terms of the overall performance. But obviously Matt Jones has got a much superior cast of characters around him compared to what Zach had around him today. And so I think overall it stands out really, really strongly in terms of rookie QB performances against the opponent they're facing and with the weapons they've got at their disposal and the line and who he had up front are missing. So I think it was really, really promising, and it obviously bodes well for next year. But then there's that mistake that happened, obviously 4th and 2, and we'll get to that now. I mean, you get it out of the way in this year. That's the good thing. You get it. This is something to learn from. It's a big learning experience for everyone in terms of the coaches and what they had to do. Zach and him, what he had to do in the play. I think he should have been aware that it was 4th and 2. That a QB sneak from 2 yards out is not going to work, especially against such a stout line. Even if the A gap did seem open, and when I look back at the replay, there did seem to be an opening on the A gap. That being said, those guys can collapse that very fast, So, like, especially when you're talking about 2 yards to gain, it was a wrong decision. He made a mistake. The coaches obviously didn't help him out with that. They obviously know that rookies can make a mistake. They want to make sure that they're communicating to give him help that he may need in that moment. And it's a learning experience for everyone. But the kind of the way that this is being used to kind of bash him over the head after this great performance, it's such a shame because it's really this performance should be known for all those throws. There was that one throw that he made that was kind of low down to Berrios, and he kind of thread the needle. You see the replay from behind where Berrios caught it, and it was just thread the needle. It was a beautiful throw. It just right through the middle of 2 defenders, right to Berrios. It was like that was elite play. And now we're going to be talking about this play, and everyone's bashing him over, about his character even. Obviously, some individuals who we won't mention are going after him in his character, saying it was a selfish play and that it was all about me. I didn't see that. What was your take on it?
The character stuff is complete and utter nonsense. It's ridiculousness. It's people with an agenda kind of seeing an opportunity to dig the knife in. So let's package that up, forget about it, put it to one side, ignore the people who said it and are trying to bash a young man's career for their own attention. I think The first thing I'd question on the 4-2 play, and this is something that perhaps we won't get an answer to, but when Salah spoke about it in his press conference, he said that the play is designed for half a yard, 1 yard situations. And that's where the option is really effective, because if Zach can get that half yard, 1 yard, it's good. If not, they've got the outside valve to kind of bleed it out. Why is it then being called in 4-2 situations? Surely LaFleur has something in his playbook designed for 4-2, 4-3, those slightly longer plays, which I guess was the frustration. And I do think, having said that, it was the right play call if they kind of got the execution, because you watch the film back and Tampa Bay had bitten really tight, and the Jets had, I think it was Kenny Yeboah on the top, who would have been able to block anyone, and Braxton could have walked it into the end zone
easily.
Or just taken a knee on the 2 yard line so the Jets can kneel the game away. So it's one of those ones that you question the play calling, or you question the playbook even, and say, do we not have anything better for those situations? In terms of the actual execution, I think that's all it is. It's a learning experience, and it's one of those ones which, if it happens in 12 months' time, I will be annoyed at, because those things shouldn't be happening, and those things are not what you want to see in those clutch situations. At this stage, given where we are in the season, given how draft position and all of these various bits are moving around, I think you chalk it up as a learning experience. You say, fair play, it happens, draw a line under it, and I'm sure it'll be one of the first things they talk about this week is when we're in this situation moving forward, this is how we need to execute it. And even though it didn't have the right outcome today, it's one of those things that we keep talking about. It's part of the game which you learn how to win. And although they didn't win yesterday, they probably learned how to win. By next time, they should be able to finish off that play on that drive. And it's just another weapon in the arsenal. It's more experience. I think the big shame is it's kind of taken away from Zach's performance, because he was on fire. And I think this is where hopefully a lot of the dialogue shifts. Once we kind of brush it under the carpet and kind of look to the week ahead, the discussion goes on to Zach's performance, because he still slightly gets tarnished by this brush of first 4 weeks Zach Wilson, where he was a bit shaky, a bit kind of finding his feet, getting set. And that was natural, that was fair. People were just disappointed he wasn't Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert straight away. But since coming back from injury, with exception from the Saints game, really, and we've seen how good the Saints defense is.
Yeah.
Zach's been getting it done. He's done everything you've asked of him. I think yesterday the yards were up, the completion percentage was up for a long time. I think he hit over 7 yards on his yard per attempt. It was all trending in the right direction. Obviously, the touchdowns are still hovering around 1 per game, and this is because they just go so run heavy when they're on the goal line.
And trick heavy, right? They do a lot of trick plays heavy, with Braxton Berrios doing something, and I mean the play that he ran in was supposed to be an option to either throw it to Zach, or then he obviously took the option to take it in, which was obviously the correct decision. But that takes away from his touchdown total, which in another game, Zach could have 3 touchdowns, and it's looking like a complete different game on the box score. But the 234 yards. I think is a good output. 1 touchdown, no interceptions. I know he had that one chance. Obviously, there was a few chances that it could have dropped interceptions. He also had a couple of dropped passes from his own teammates. So these things happen in the game. Even the great Tom Brady had a pretty bad interception with Brandon Eccles took in the first half. So I think it's really good. Like he's had 4 games now with no interception. He's now got, I think it's 12 touchdowns in the season overall to 11 interceptions. So he's now gone over the touchdowns to interception. He's got more touchdowns to interceptions, which is positive. And if you take away that one calamitous game, he's just not had other games where he's completely collapsed. That was the one game, his first ever start. We talked about it back then. It was just one of those games where it just kind of piled on, and it was a learning experience for him. But overall, he has shown to be pretty good with the ball and done a good job. And so I think you're seeing these baby steps. There isn't these kind of massive games that are, showing massive improvement, but I think this was one. I think this was a big step from we've seen little steps, and I think this was a bigger step in the right direction. and we see next week against Buffalo, if he can put up another good performance, that's really good, I think, for the optics of the Jets as a whole, looking into the off-season, trying to attract players to join this movement. If Zach is looking like a promising player and kind of shows the end of the season, people look at his performances in the season, they can see that he's trending, and maybe they'll sign on, and it helps the Jets attract some talent, like Justin Herbert helped attract some talent to LA, last off season. So that's the hope, But now we have the narrative of like, who do we help get into the play? Who do we help win the division? Do we help if we beat Buffalo? Then we help the Patriots win, and Matt Jones, and that's insufferable for anyone who has a Patriots friend. That they the way they are. So it's just the nonsense that you deal with the AFC East. But I think a good performance is the most important thing. And then a win or loss is really doesn't really matter if there's some good performances out there from the young players.
I'm not even worried about who gets into the playoffs in the AFC East.
I mean, they're both in, so
they're both in. But
it's about who hosts, right? So
I'm focused on us, what we do.
Yeah.
It kind of is what it is, isn't it? At that point, and hopefully we're there next season. And I think they're kind of putting the building blocks in to get us into that position. So
yeah.
All eyes on next season.
Yeah, and I think that for all of Miami, I think Miami there for the taking to overlap them next year. I just don't see where they're going. I mean, this 7-game run of wins. I mean, kudos to them, but they didn't really. They weren't exactly beating. They had a lot of kind of easy opponents or opponents that were kind of COVID hit, injury hit, that were kind of getting a quite an easy run, and then they finally face a decent team and they get demolished. So I don't know if Miami are really it at all. They may be technically an 8-win team, but I think they're masking that as more of a 4 or 5-win team in reality. So I think that's one team we could pick off, and then I think if we make big improvements, we can really attack the division and hopefully start to get some wins in the division and really be kind of a player for the division title going forward. So we'll see how that unfolds. Starting next week, let's see if we can get that win in the division finally next week. So we'll see how that works out. I think for that we'll wrap up. The game in terms of that's where we are. I think we'll just finish off the show with our draft segment. It's getting drafty in here. We'll move on to this week. It's going to be tight ends, right, Matt?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the tight end position, we've all noticed there's been a massive hole there this season throughout the years. I mean, Tyler Croft and Ryan Griffin have had flashes, but they're not really guys you want to build the offense around. And if one of them comes back next season, it's not the end of the world. But I still think no matter what, you need to be attacking tight end in both free agency, add one there, and the draft, and add one in the draft. And we're gonna focus on two guys in the draft. One's probably a late second, early third round guy, and then one's a day 3 guy. And so the first guy is and I've seen Trey McBride's been linked to the Jets quite a lot, so I thought I'd throw out a different name there just to kind of see what we can do. And it's kind of going back to the same well where I chose Garrett Wilson from Ohio State, and I must caveat that I'm in no way an Ohio State guy, but Jeremy Ruckert has got a lot of the tools and kind of the ability that you want out of someone who can be that featured move piece, and has played a lot in those 12 personnels which the Jets started the season quite heavily using. So I think he's a guy who you can see put his hand in the dirt, kind of get down, get dirty, and he's a very good blocker, which is part of the thing. The other thing that I think just stands out to me about him is his hands. There was the one of the famous touchdowns that Justin Fields threw in the college football playoff semi-finals last season, when he fitted into a tight window and he rifled it in there, and it stuck to Jeremy Ruckert's hands like absolute glue. And they're just example after examples on tape where Jeremy Ruckert is able just to caress the ball and bring it in. And he's a big target. He comes in way over 6 foot, and his hands are so secure that I think as a move piece, as a kind of a weapon in the Jets offense, as that kind of safety blanket, that security guy, he's exactly what you're looking for. His route running is clean enough. It still can do with a bit of work. He still needs to kind of develop and grow, but I think with all the tools that he has, he'd be a great addition to this offense and a really nice piece to kind of add in and help build around. I think, obviously, as I said, you still want to be adding a free agent guy. If Dalton Schultz hits the market, we've heard his name before, but let's throw the bag at him. If not, there are other guys out there potentially, but let's see.
Yeah, there's definitely guys. Obviously, that free agency is going to dictate how hard we'll hit the tight end position in the draft. Whether we go with one of the higher second round picks or we go with our third round pick, someone like a Ruckert. So I think that depends. If we can really get a big named tight end, keep Tyler Croft around, maybe then we go with someone later on in the draft who could be a little bit of a gem. So who's in the later rounds are you looking at, and you would like to tell the listeners about?
Later round is someone that I actually was eyeing up last year as well, and he chose to go back to school. And I don't think he's massively boosted his draft stock. He's just kind of shown more of the same, which I guess from a consistency point of view, from a day 3 guy who's going to come in and will be able to add value day 1, Charlie Kohler out of Iowa State is a really nice piece, and he's someone who hits that tight end cliche of being a state champion basketball player. He is a 6'6", gangly, long reach, really almost like, I'm trying to Dr. Octopus out of Spider-Man, just goes out and plucks the ball out of thin air. His reach is incredible. I think where he lacks and why he's going to kind of, the reason why he's not a day 2 guy is his speed and his twitch and like his top level athleticism is perhaps lacking in terms of being able to develop that true separation, and kind of he's not going to be a yards after catch guy. He's going to be a catch and get tackled guy. He's going to be an over the middle red zone threat, able to use his reach and his terrific catch radius to go up and pluck the ball out of the air and be a comfort, be a nice consistent target. I think that's where he's really going to stand out in terms of a simple route tree, effective at it, and ability to just get the ball and move the sticks when you need him to. I think he also, unlike Ruckert, isn't perhaps the most natural blocker. He's not afraid of blocking, and he's able to use his size, but he's 6'6", but he's not the most filled out 6'6". He is quite gangly, for lack of a better word. So when he comes up against bigger defensive linemen, he can kind of get a bit blown back. And I think one of the things you'd really look to do with Kohler is get him in the weight room early and get him a bit of upper body size on him just to help with that. But as a day 1 contributor, a red zone threater, a third and short guy, a guy who can move the sticks, you can trust with the ball going his way, I think he'd be a great option.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like for a team that's really tight and needy, free agency, even when you go past Dalton Schultz, there's some really interesting options there. And the draft is also filled with a lot of options. There may not be a Kyle Pitts prospect, but there seems to be a lot of guys in that, round 2, round 3. And then even later on, as I said, someone like Charlie Kohler provides a really good option there if you want to get kind of some value to add to your tight end room. So yeah, I think it's the draft overall looks pretty promising for some of our needs, and the tight end room is one of them. So yeah, I mean, that's going to be us for this week. I think we're pretty down about the result, but also pretty happy. So we're kind of a bit neutral at the moment. It's kind of a bit muted. I guess we're seeing the season out very much so at this point. And yeah, so we'd like to thank you for listening. David will be back on, with all this Christmas stuff and New Year stuff. We obviously, we've been shifting here and there. Hopefully we'll get the 3 of us back on together as we kind of move into the off season as well. We'll have a lot more episodes with the 3 of us yucking it up. So yeah, guys, it's been a really good season so far. We've got 1 more week left. I think what we'll be doing is during the playoffs, we'll be taking a break during the playoffs until the Super Bowl finishes, and then after the Super Bowl, we'll be back, and then we'll be kind of previewing, leading up to kind of looking back on the season, looking forward into the off season as we head towards free agency. So it should be, obviously, we very much know it's going to be a very exciting period for us. So yeah, guys, thanks for listening. Hit us up on social media at Jets UK Pod. Follow David's work on the Jets Way. stuff. So yeah, all that's really good. Follow us on YouTube as well. If you subscribe to us there, that would be really appreciated as well. So yeah, guys, thanks for listening. It's our first show of the new year, and we hope to have a really, really exciting 2022. So yeah, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.